Process, not live. I think this is actually not Family Feud.
Trust the Process recorded.
Celebrity Squares.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Well, welcome into Trust the Celebrity Squares. Trust the Process, not live. We are coming to you from each of our own abodes because we can't show up to work anymore. To tell you all about sports, below me is Max Coolers. Bottom left is James Jackson. To my left is executive producer James Hyde. And we are here to talk whatever sports is left in this world. We're going to try and help you through it. Guys, how's your week been? We haven't seen each other in 2 weeks now.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I've ever cherished going into work, going into an office more than I have this past week. I love my family, love my home, but I'm a person who needs to get out. You know what I mean? And I'm doing my best to not go insane, not go stir crazy. We're trying to be inside my house all day. It is definitely a challenge, though. It is 100% a challenge. My goodness.
Boring is an understatement. I don't know how else to put it. I'm sick of this.
Mm-hmm. I need to go. And it'd be one thing if we were quarantined inside our house with live sports, but it's the added challenge of being inside with no March Madness, no NBA, no MLB,
no anything.
No anything.
Yeah,
for a couple days there was like Russian and Turkish and like Mexican soccer being played, and I was holding on to that for dear life, dude. For dear life, at least stop.
No more.
I've actually cycled through the different sports games at like what time they would be on, trying to like simulate for myself, like 2K being on here. Did like a fantasy draft in Madden, trying to get myself ready for that, and then crushing hours on the show.
Yeah.
So it's needless to say, pretty awful.
Yeah, and there's plenty of video games to be played. There's plenty of classic sports games to watch, but there has been absolutely no live content, as JJ said. But we did get some good free agent stuff from the NFL this week. The NFL wasn't sleeping. Thank the Lord for all of us who were just – it was an oasis in the middle of this desert of a lack of sports content that we got. Just some comings and goings of players joining teams, leaving teams. We'll start right in Philadelphia with our Eagles. Eagles free agency, the most impressive additions. Now, this answer might be obvious, but there have been a couple of nice additions on the margin as well. So, JJ, where do you want to start us here?
I mean, he wasn't a free agent, but he was an addition nonetheless. And I think, you're right, Sean, it's pretty obvious who the biggest addition is, but big play Slay over there in the secondary really shows up what was a shaky baby secondary last year, and you come and you get a bona fide number one cornerback. I think something that the Eagles haven't truly had a number one shutdown cornerback, maybe going back to the Asante Samuel days in 2011, 2012. Like, we're dating ourselves a little bit from the last time that the Eagles can really bank on a cornerback who is okay and willing to shadow the best receiver on the opposite team play after play, game after game. And I think it might even open up a little bit what Jim Schwartz is able to do in that defense. Another added perk is that Jim Schwartz is very familiar with Darius Slay from his time in Detroit. So, I think that, Darius Slay is going to prove as, the best, addition to that Eagles defense, in a long time. And he's going to be able to help them out on the back end, especially when you have players like Jalen Mills moving positions into that safety role, something he hasn't played since college. And now you have someone who's coming in, who's been all pro, who's been Pro Bowl the last 3 years, who's just, a superstar at his position. And I think this reflects really well on Howie Roseman. I think the world focused on Byron Jones. The world focused on Byron Jones and saying that was the cornerback that everyone needs to go and get. If you don't, then you missed out on your cornerback opportunity. And for some reason, Darius Slay was out of the minds of everybody on the market. And I think when everyone focused on, Byron Jones, Howie Roseman kind of put his mind and his focus on Darius Slay, seeing that he didn't have as much pull or as much attention, and really got him with, it seems to be no contention to him. So
I think that really comes down to people underestimating how little Detroit would ask for, because they all came in assuming that this was going to be like I need at least a first and a third, because he's an elite coverage corner. But then Bill O'Brien, who I know we'll get to later, just destroyed the entire trade market for this offseason. So I think that's mainly what happened to Slay's trade value. Everybody went in thinking it'd be astronomically high and then just tanked. And Howie Roseman pulled off a coup, getting this guy for what he did.
And before we get to Max, do you guys think that this solves the problems with the Eagles secondary? Do you?
No, dude, they have Jalen Mills playing safety. What?
Bingo. Bingo.
I heard that too.
Bingo. And here we go again. Because
Shut a window, open a door.
Y'all Eagles fans crack me up. When something happens, at first you don't like it, and then the next phase is justifying it. So
You have to. Everyone does that.
You don't have to. Max, you don't have to. You don't have to.
You have to try. You have to talk yourself into it.
You can admit that this isn't where we want to be, but it's
Of
something.
course I can, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try to talk myself into it.
Yeah, Jalen Mills trying to tackle your other team's tight
He
end.
played safety in college. What's not to love?
Jalen Mills is now one of your last lines of defense. Jalen Mills is one of your last lines of defense.
Do you guys think you would feel worse about Jalen Mills once he gets burnt by a tight end double move?
Oh man,
That's so much less likely to happen. It'll be way worse, though. It'll be way worse. It'll be way worse.
Here's the thing. It's not.
He won't get burned for a touchdown.
He's
like
the
for a deep
last line of
touchdown.
defense. Max, if he gets burned, there's nobody behind him. He's the safety. There's nobody back there. If
If
Jalen
he's
Mills
playing
is
one-on-one
free,
coverage
it's
with someone
good.
up tight, there's going to be someone else
But
behind him.
here's
Or
why.
they're calling the blitz.
Jalen Mills is one of Jalen Mills' biggest deficiencies is that he bites on moves and takes himself out of position. As a safety, your biggest point of emphasis
Exactly.
is staying in position. You
And
can't
it's easier to do when you're a safety.
out of position. Not if his eyes are where they shouldn't be.
But your eyes don't have your eyes still in a
discipline.
different place as a safety and cornerback. They're different positions.
But he lacks that discipline.
They're asking him to play up in
to
the
have
box.
his discipline. If he doesn't have that, Jalen Mills is caught out of position so many times, and there goes your last line of defense. And
What
also,
they're doing now,
He's good at playing the ball. Everything else before that leaves stuff to be desired, but safety takes some of that out.
Zach, answer me this too. Is Jalen Mills? Do you like Jalen Mills' ability to tackle in space?
That's what I'm saying. Like
I don't love it.
Schwartz is now trying to play him like Malcolm Jenkins because they kept Rodney McLeod, their center.
Yeah, and he's not nearly as good as Jenkins.
He's
Not nearly as
nowhere
good. We can
near
agree on
Rick
that.
sugarcoated it. Jalen Mills is bad tackling in space. You could say it.
No, you know, James, you can just stop it. Jalen Mills is bad. You know that, right?
Well, we've talked entirely too much about Jalen Mills. Max, who are you excited about coming into this team?
I mean, he's been getting overlooked. Javon Hargraves is going to be a nice addition.
Damn, dude.
The Eagles, I see this move as the Eagles trying to go back to their roots and being a defensive line dominated team. They tried it last year, and unfortunately injuries mostly derailed that. Like injuries derailed a lot of other positions. But this guy is young. He's coming off a 60 tackle season as a defensive tackle, especially as a nose tackle in a 3-4, which is very impressive. That's a lot of tackles. A lot of 4-3 defensive tackles don't get that many tackles.
Isn't he a 3 technique?
What?
Isn't he a 3 technique, not a true nose tackle?
Yeah, he was a true. He was. I don't know if he is a true nose tackle, but he was playing nose tackle in Pittsburgh. They've been playing 3-4. So I'm not sure if that's his natural position, but that's what he was playing. And I think putting him in that rotation, I think he's a guy that maybe you can flex to the outside on. Not outside, but in bigger packages, you can have him as a third defensive tackle in there with good ends as well. So I think he gives them a lot of options on the defensive line. I think we all agree that's not the position they necessarily should have been after the hardest, but I don't think that this is going to be a signing that we're going to regret. Be like, why would we ever sign this guy? I think this guy's going to come in and ball out. I just think that he's not getting the recognition he deserves because he doesn't play the position of cornerback or linebacker, which are the two huge needs on the defense.
Yeah, and I do think he'll be a great addition and a help because right now you have Fletcher Cox on the inside who is still playing at an all-pro level, but now you get someone to aid him in his defensive tackle responsibility.
And hey, maybe get Malik Jackson back after he gets.
That's where I was going because honestly, once Malik Jackson comes back, you have not like I'm not even going to go outside to the ends with Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett, but inside you have a rotation of Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, and Malik Jackson. That's like with the ends that makes you right now stepping into the league. It could change depending on where Clowney goes, this, that, and the other thing. But right now, the Eagles look to have the best defensive line in the league.
Yeah, and that's how they were so successful in 2017. Nobody could run against them, and that's how you can get away with having bad cornerbacks and bad secondary play if you can just game plan around, giving that area all the assistance all game. Like that's not always how it works, but they rode that formula for a whole season into a title, and honestly, like that's a habit that's going to be hard to break. You've seen it work at the highest level.
That's they walked into that Super Bowl. When you walk into a game in the fourth quarter, having Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, and Malik Jackson being fresh and rested in the fourth with fresh legs, that's tough to beat.
I don't know if you guys heard, but the door opened, the dog came in, so she's requiring some love. So if I'm a little bit here, a little bit there, you know what's going on. But you talked a lot about the safety position on this Eagles team, though, and one guy we didn't mention is new guy coming in, Will Parks. He's at PhillyWill11 on Instagram. He's coming over from the Broncos. He is a safety. He's signed with the Birds. We want to welcome him to Philadelphia because with the loss of Malcolm heading out, we have a new safety with great philanthropic, just interest and drive. Parks Place Adventure. You can find them at Parks Place Adventure on Instagram. Their mission, it's Will Parks, charity. Their mission is to create smiles for our kids through youth empowerment programs, community outreach, and a commitment to school and to work. We are thrilled to have you, Will Parks. Welcome to Philadelphia. And there's no better way to go into it than to talk about some of the losses. I just read today, Philly, Can We Still Be Friends, which I thought was an incredibly well-written, Players Tribune article. Yeah, it really was. I thought it was, having worked, having had the opportunity to work on Ask Malcolm with Malcolm Jenkins, you really could hear that was his voice. That wasn't anyone writing it for him. That was him. That was him speaking to people that really meant a lot to him and his time here. So, Malcolm, we wish you the best. Will Parks, we wish you the best. And we're going to use that now to just talk about some of the other losses that this Eagles team has experienced. And if you guys want to start with Malcolm, that's certainly a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, he's bigger. He's larger of a loss than any other piece, player, coach, staff, facility, all of them combined. I'm not exaggerating here. What he did on the field and off the field for this team, and not even going to get into the social contributions, what he did for the city. Talking strictly football, what he did in and out of that facility and on the field for them. That's the biggest thing for me. How do you do what you did to Dawkins and let that leader, that heart and soul of the defense walk because of age and $1 million? And easy for me to just say, oh, it's just $1 million. But let's be realistic here. This is the NFL. You can throw a guy like Malcolm Jenkins an extra $1 million if that's really what it comes down to. Right. So I'm very disappointed that they didn't learn from one of their biggest mistakes of the last 20 years of this regime, other than Chip Kelly. I think letting Brian Dawkins go is up there with every Eagles fan's list of Lurie's and Howie's, mess up list. So I hate the fact that they did this. I really do. To me, the only other piece that's two other guys worth mentioning, Nigel Bradham got cut a while ago. I hated doing that because it's never good to cut ties with your best player at a position. Not ever a fan of that move on paper. And then also Jordan Howard, my guy, showed out for the barely over half a season that he played. I hope that he does well in Miami. He did nothing wrong here. We'll always have that Thursday night at Lambeau Field where he absolutely revenge gamed the hell out of the Packers. And so shout out to him. But other than that, keep them. They're filling the cracks, guys. And except for one other one that I know JJ wants to talk about, but no.
First of all, Max, that's unfair for you to position it like that because you've already put me under the bar. You've already made me have to climb an uphill battle with what I'm about to say. And,
it's the truth.
And look. I was.
It's ridiculous. Wait, let's not preface it like it's not worth doing.
Pre-show, I brought this up to all of you who's out there. Pre-show, I brought this up to my three co-hosts right now, and I got crucified for it, which is not something that I'm used to on this show, so it kind of doesn't faze me anymore. But I think I have a point from why I'm saying this. And I'm gonna put my hand over the left side of my screen because the faces I'm getting from Mr. Sean Northgrave and James Hyden over there are just not welcoming, to say the least. But you have a wide receiver core that was already thin at its shells, correct? Already looked depleted. I mean, look what the Eagles had to end the season with last year. And now you let somebody, Nelson Aguilar, go on that receiving core who was known in the offense, had good moments with the Eagles. Let's not act like he didn't have good moments, and had established what was a rapport and a chemistry with Carson Wentz and with that offense. So from my standpoint of why it's a loss for the Eagles, why it's a big loss for the Eagles, is because the hole that was already there just got that much deeper. How much deeper is up for negotiation? Whether he was someone huge to keep, someone who truly helped your offense, maybe up for discussion. And by the faces I'm getting, I'm saying not much. But now you have that much more of an obligation to go and fill the wide receiver position. And if you swing and miss, if you don't get an adequate receiver through free agency, if you don't draft a good receiver to fill the hole of what is him and Alshon Jeffrey, let's be honest, someone who's still there but is old and hasn't done much for the Eagles since the Super Bowl, you have even more responsibility. If you go and swing and miss, that looks terribly bad. And now you're going into the season with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as your number 1 or number 2 receiver. Like, it's not something that we want to do. Hopefully Deshaun Jackson comes back and hopefully Deshaun Jackson comes back in good health. But you have your top 3 wide receivers all had question marks. Nelson Aguilar's ability, Alshon Jeffrey, and Deshaun Jackson's health. You took that away, and now your 2 top receivers have big question marks on top of that. It's a huge hole the Eagles need to fill. And if you don't fill it, then I'm not sure how much ground you make up with the Darius Slay and Javon Hargrave signing, because your offense still has no good receivers to throw to. That's all that I'm saying.
All I'll say on that
Points
is
were made. Points were made.
Hey, all I'll say on that is you can have a rapport with somebody and it not be a good one.
And not catch the ball. I get it. You still got to catch the ball if it's thrown to you.
I'll leave that there.
Understood. My big question to Eagles fans out there is, when you got rid of Nelson Aguilar, who is the replacement? What's the plan?
I think there'll be a bigger issue if the team doesn't draft a wide receiver. I think the team like the
that's what you want. Sean, you get a pass because you're not an actual Eagles fan, so I can't make you feel this. But Max, you laugh now. If the Eagles do not adequately fill the position, it will be me looking at you like, I wonder if we missed somebody.
I mean, Aguilar is not going to be the difference in that group in them drafting well or not. It's not. They needed to draft at least 3 receivers. They need a big hit on at least one of them, whoever they take in the first round, preferably. Aguilar was never going to be a difference maker next year. He just wasn't. I wish him all the best. He had by far the best year of his career, the year that it mattered the most. I never saw anything else besides mediocrity out of him. I hope he does well in Oakland. Hope he brings back the 2017 form, but
I mean, he had like 80 yards on like 8 or 9 catches in the Super Bowl too, right? So I mean,
yeah, he had a great 2017 year. He put all the mental stuff behind him. And he can be explosive, but it seems like focus is his issue.
I will give you, when things are going right, Nelson Aguilar can fall in line when things are going right. When things are going wrong, it seems that Nelson Aguilar is the one who gets affected by that the most when things are going wrong. Not what you want out of a player. I get that. But to sit here and being willing to throw him to the curb like he's never done anything good for the Eagles, I think is a wrong position.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying that he had the best year of his career, the year that it mattered most, but that was over 2 years ago, and he really hasn't shown he hasn't shown enough to warrant coming back, and you know what I mean? Like, it's better just for both sides to move on at this point, I think.
Yeah, and speaking of moving on, we got to keep it moving here. Entirely too much talk on Nelson Aguilar, who cost the Eagles multiple wins last year, basically alone. But, we'll just ignore that for production 3 years ago. That's fine. So, Tom Brady, speaking of production 3 years ago, maybe that's unfair. But Tom Brady is going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. TB going to TB. For a little bit, I thought TG was going to join him with Todd Gurley, but that didn't end up happening. Brady, Buccaneers. How does this shift the power even more to the NFC? Because I think the NFC was the dominant conference, before any of this happened. But now I would say that definitively, the most talent, especially at the quarterback position, is in this conference.
Nah, AFC was better.
I mean,
quarterback talent now?
AFC was better. I think it was so top heavy just between the Ravens and the Chiefs that like nobody else really stood a chance. Now
the NFC was definitely the better conference last year.
I'm sorry?
The NFC was definitely the better conference as a whole.
I would disagree. I think the top heaviness outweighs, because I really only think of conferences by the 8 playoff teams. So I would go.
I mean, we sit here and say that the NFC was better top to bottom last year, yet a team like the Titans was the team who made the run in the AFC and, proved that the bottom half of the AFC can take out the top powers if it wanted to.
I think the AFC was the better conference. I think the NFC is now better just because the NFC South is the best division in football.
That's where I was going to go. Maybe the NFC, maybe it didn't shift the balance of power from conference to conference, but it shifts the balance of power within the NFC. So now I think the NFC South is by far the best conference, at least or best division, at least in the conference, maybe in football. I mean, you had, I think, all 4 teams in the NFC South upgraded. It didn't look like the Falcons were going to do that when they let go of Devontae Freeman and Desmond Trufant, and then they get Todd Gurley, and it's like, maybe all is forgiven now. But, I mean, when you go down to the NFC, you just have a team in the Buccaneers, thank God, who looked like they were a quarterback away from really putting something together, really making a run and being someone in contention.
I'll give it to them.
You guys don't watch the Buccaneers like I watch the Buccaneers. Stay out of this.
Dude, I'm a Vikings fan. We have perpetually been a quarterback away. I don't want to hear it.
And the Buccaneers were. I don't see where the scoffs
You
are
have
coming
a
from.
ring.
If you look at, like, what?
You have a ring.
Yeah, that was 17 years ago.
I have none.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a you
about
problem over there, man.
I'm talking about the Vikings.
That sounds like a you problem. I'm talking
It
about
is. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's a quarterback away. It's a very big distance away. Is that not? I don't.
I'm talking about the Buccaneers now. I think, especially for the NFC's sake, we're gonna get maybe 1 through 6, and next year 1 through 7 with the added wild card team, where you're gonna have 6, maybe 7 teams that you can legitimately make a case for as to why this team is a legitimate contender for a championship. And I think it's been a little bit where you could go 1 through 6 where you could legitimately say that. And I think that just is going to make for an even more exciting playoffs. I mean, even more exciting regular season. And if you look at the Buccaneers schedule, the quarterback matchups and the matchups that Tom Brady is going to have to face throughout the season, I mean, we get Drew Brees twice. We get Patrick Mahomes. Like, we get Brady versus these elite quarterbacks for 6-7 games of the season. It's going to be really exciting and really fun to watch. And for the Buccaneers, it's good because going into it's not like you've got an easy road until you get to the playoffs. And now we have to truly see how Brady gets tested with the Buccaneers and his new team. If and when Brady does get to the playoffs, if and when we do make the playoffs, we're already going to be battle tested. We're already going to have to go through the toughest division in football. Plus, our out of conference games are very tough too. So we have a road ahead of us, and I like that. I like being battle tested before you get to the playoffs.
And to your point, JJ, I like just running the numbers in my head right now. The only 3 teams in the NFC that I think we could say are out of it before the year, and one of them I think maybe you could say is on the line: Detroit, Washington, and the Giants. And I think everyone else is in play for the playoffs. And it's
Carolina. Carolina's tank.
Okay.
Carolina's right, man. Carolina.
They play off, but
okay.
dude, they are gonna not have a good year.
Their defense is nowhere near where it should be. I mean, they lost 3 big players on their defense between Gerald McCoy, Luke Kuechly, and Eric Reed. So they lost literally someone at every level. But I mean, I'm not sure their offense takes much of a hit. Look, I mean, Christian McCaffrey had a record season with Kyle Allen throwing him the football. I mean, you put Teddy Bridgewater in there and went 5-0. That's an upgrade, right? Is that not an upgrade? So
it is.
All I'm saying is the Panthers. Somebody in that division's got to stink.
You know I'm a Teddy stan. I'll ride with Teddy.
I think the advantage is definitely towards the NFC. Max, jump in here.
Honestly, for me, it's really as simple as, how long is it going to take for that team to gel? Like, Tom Brady, obviously, he's gonna put in the work with those guys on offense. The defense showed promise last year. I mean, it's really just a matter of, do you think the Saints' continuity or the Buccaneers, stars aligning is going to be what comes out on top? Because ultimately, whoever wins that division is more than likely going to get a bye, 1 or 2. Maybe they don't finish with the 1 seed because they're playing against each other and in a good division in general. But I think at worst, you're looking at a 2 seed from the winner of that division, and obviously the loser is going to have to go on the road in the first round. And for me personally, like, I would want to see, because I would bet, obviously with the way the NFL schedules now, they're going to be playing each other at least once in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. For me personally, I'll just take my chances. If the Bucs are getting the home game later on in the season, I'll take them to win the division, because if they're playing at home in the beginning of the season, much more likely to get upset, and winning on the road and in a divisional game is what gives you that mental edge. It lets you prepare, gives you home field advantage. Next time you already got the 1 win under your belt. So I think a lot of it comes down to the schedule. I think when they play each other early in the season will dictate a lot of who wins that division ultimately, honestly. Because at that point, whoever loses that game is probably chasing tiebreakers the rest of the time. You know what I mean? You win that first showdown between the Bucs and Saints, you kind of control your own destiny at that point, presuming you don't blow a game to the Panthers or one of the other bottom feeder teams you'll play along the way.
Mm-hmm. And 2 quick things as to why I think I see the Buccaneers trending very much upward. Besides my my optimism for my team is, one, we have to remember Tom Brady is very cognizant of his legacy. And he knows, as well as everyone else knows, next year's Super Bowl is being held in Tampa Bay. He could be the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl on his home turf. And I think
you don't want that pressure, man.
For a guy who's seemingly accomplished everything and is kind of just looking for something else to see as a challenge, that's it. Like Brady's like, there's not too many things where I can look and say, I haven't done that yet. He needs something to push him. That's something to push him. And also why I think it works is you look at the old regime versus the new regime. The old regime where you have Dirk Cutter and, Lovie Smith at the helm as guys who maybe haven't proven themselves so much yet as head coaches in this league or coordinators in this league. And then you have Jameis Winston, the young gun quarterback who's trying to will your team. You scratch that out and you bring in now Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. That diametrically opposes the culture that you had past where the young, fun-loving Jameis Winston tried to pour all this good energy in people, and Tom Brady and Bruce Arians coming in and saying, we're just about business. This is what it is. We will smile when it's appropriate to smile, but when it's between the lines of football, it's no fun and games until a W's in that column. And I think that's what the Buccaneers needed with such a lethal, offensive core and a rising defense. You needed, almost to cement, that standard of professionalism and winning. You know what I mean? No one has fun losing. No one has fun going 7-9. I don't care how much good energy you want to put into this thing. It's fun to go 13-3, 12-4. Whether I'm smiling on my face or not, I guarantee you it's more fun to do that than it is to go 7-9 and miss the playoffs and throw 30 interceptions. So I think that when you really oppose those two, I think that's something good for the Buccaneers. And I know from just watching him and following him on social media, really reading into him, it's something Mike Evans is very much looking forward to having on this team is, I need a professional. I need someone who I know is going to be the first one in film, the first one on the field, and the last one to leave is going to do everything in his power, to put us to victory. So
who can blame him? Wide receiver loving having Tom Brady as his QB.
Two things, James. Hold your tongue about Lovie Smith. He did it with Rex Grossman. So
no, he didn't finish the job. He got there.
Do it with my team. He didn't do it with my team.
That's my first one. And then two, if you, by the grace of God, if the cards fall how they may, if you knock the Saints out of the playoffs, drinks on me for a week. So that's.
I'll tell Tom.
I'm glad we got all of the talk about professionalism out of the way on that topic because we're going to go to one of the least 5 professional teams in football right now, which is the team that's being mostly run by the monarchy of King Bill O'Brien. So the DeAndre Hopkins trade really broke the floodgates on the market, on the agency, on everything. And I have to say, there's a lot of surprising trades that happen in sports. The NBA does this pretty consistently. It's every 6 months. This actually shocked me. I couldn't believe that it was a guy that looks washed and a second round pick is really it's embarrassing to say that you trade for guys like DeAndre Hopkins. You don't trade away guys like DeAndre Hopkins, and you don't trade away guys like DeAndre Hopkins for less than a first round pick. So what happened, guys? How has Bill O'Brien not been fired yet?
I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea.
To me, Bill O'Brien is one of those narcissistic guys who said, if you don't align with how I look,
I think we get where JJ.
I think we got him back. JJ, you good?
Do we?
Oh.
All right, Max, pick it up until JJ's back in time.
I just traded him right away. So am I back? Was I frozen?
Yeah, we're throwing it, Max. You're jumping in and out, buddy.
So I agree. Bill O'Brien definitely does not seem like he's a very compromising guy. Players have come out, former players of his and Matt Patricia's, while we're on the subject of coaches like this. Multiple players from both of these regimes have come out and said, this guy never felt like he played favorites. He didn't respect every single player. It was, clear, whoever played by the coach's rules was, being played, not based on performance, things like that. And that's what should worry you as a fan, right? It's not bad enough you have to lose one of the best players in your franchise's history and maybe the best receiver in the game to an underwhelming at best trade. It's the fact that this guy's running the show. I had to deal with this not even 10 years ago. Chip Kelly was doing this. LaShawn McCoy was not nearly as valuable or as talented as DeAndre Hopkins is at his current position. And the fact that Chip Kelly did this in 2010 was a shock then. And this is almost worse. The fact that he actively was hey, let me take a bad running back who's been hurt a lot with a bad contract and make a bad deal for it, like that should worry you because this guy has all the control, both like on-field and off-field decisions. And until something major happens and something, bad years come and you're, winning less than 6 games for 3 years in a row, like that's what's going to take for someone with that much power to be removed from that seat.
Mm-hmm. You're going to have to waste – it really is going to come down to, like, how long is it before Watson starts to, really lose it from working in mediocrity? Generally,
we have 1 more year before DeAndre Hopkins goes for a contract renewal. And he's going to look for probably one of the biggest deals in football history, right?
Ever.
Probably.
I would like to bring up, though, it seems to like just looking back at history, the NFL is one of those leagues that the team that wins the trade is like 85% of the time the team that trades away their star player. Now, that's generally contingent on getting a bigger return than what Bill O'Brien got back.
Much bigger.
But I'd like to press pause on that statement because we're only 3 years and a couple injuries away from David Johnson having like 2,200 scrimmage yards. So like, I'm not completely out on David Johnson yet, just because, Laramie Tunsil on the right side, Titus Howard on the right side. The Titans are actively refreshing their offensive line. And then Watson loves the checkdowns to, who was he doing it last year? To Duke Johnson and
Mark Willard.
yeah. So if you're gonna get anything out of
running back.
If you're going to get anything out of David Johnson, I think this is the time. It's a generally team-friendly contract because he was
sure
back when the market was lower. So I don't want to definitely the Texans lost this trade, but I think we're moving on from David Johnson a little bit too soon.
I'll say this: I wouldn't mind the Texans trading for David Johnson in a non-DeAndre Hopkins related trade.
That's fair. That's
in a non-DeAndre Hopkins trade, or if David Johnson came with a first-round pick attached to him.
Right. No, like I said, the Texans definitely lost this trade. I just want to slow up a little bit on the David Johnson.
But also, James. You have to look at David Johnson as someone who lost his job mid-season to Kenyon Drake right away. The Cardinals traded and got Kenyon Drake, and immediately he replaced David.
That was more of a Cliff Kingsbury thing in his offense.
Yeah, and it honestly was worse than that for me. It was he lost his job, and then Kenyon Drake came like 2 weeks later, and it was like, oh, okay, now we have a running back.
Right.
It wasn't like he was healthy, and then they were like, nah. They were going with Edmonds, Chase Edmonds.
Chase Edmonds is a good rookie, but let's be honest, David Johnson is not an air raid offense running back. So that's it. It was time for him.
They got a little lucky with Chase Edmonds when they benched David Johnson and he came in. They were like, "Oh, good, he kept the ship afloat."
Edmonds was a good college running back, man.
I liked Edmonds, but he was like a fourth or fifth. He wasn't like a first or second round pick. He came in and took the job.
So was Johnson though. So me personally, I think we're moving on from David Johnson a little bit too soon. But I like old running backs. So.
All right, well, we're moving on here. We got to go into halftime now, guys, and we have a little bit of a special twist here now. We don't, everyone's out. No one's doing anything right now, so we gotta fill the time. We gotta, entertain you all out there. So for our halftimes going forward, we're going to be doing something called social media distancing. Great name by JJ. I'll give you props where it's due, JJ. So you guys are going to be able to vote on this online. We're going to have one debate question a week. JJ and Max are going to take different sides. Maybe sometimes it'll be me and James. We'll switch it up. And whoever has the better argument, whoever wins the argument in the eyes of comments on all of the different videos that you could be viewing this on, as well as polls that'll be going up on Instagram and Twitter, we'll have to do some sort of challenge or reverse reward. This week we will be doing, is it 20 push-ups, guys? You guys have to commit to this on air. There's a lot of
do 20. I'm here ready. Do 20. Max can lose anyway.
When the camera's rolling, you guys are all in for 20. And then before the camera, it's all 15.
15.
I gotta keep up a strong front in front of the fans. I'm ready to go.
So the social media distancing question this week is the free agents left on the market, guys. Who will have the biggest impact on their new team? Whole field. So you got everyone on the market. Who do you guys think is the best free agent remaining?
I'll defer, Max. Go ahead.
I will take Jadeveon Clowney. Simply, best player available, second most premium position in the game. The guy's looking for big money, but he's not getting the offer that he thought he was, and now he's just kind of floating out there. And honestly, I think a lot of teams could benefit from him. The dude has shown that he can be double-digit consistently in terms of sacks, huge pressure off the edge, good run defender, pretty much the whole package. Not as never really panned out to top 3 pick like you're supposed to be at coming out of South Carolina, but still a guy you definitely want on your team without question. So I'm gonna say Jadeveon Clowney just because he's the most valuable player out there still.
And not to help you make your points, you can do that all on your own. He basically made that Seattle front line last year. Like he like just single-handedly like really kept them afloat. JJ, who are you going with?
I'm going with it's kind of the same argument that James was having with David Johnson of not moving on from him too quickly. I think people forget what Cam Newton was able to do just a couple of years ago in Carolina, and I think he's definitely someone who, you talk about helping a football team, there are many football teams out there that can benefit from someone like Cam Newton, especially a big body quarterback who still has the mobility factor to him. We see a lot of teams going to this air raid, this special spread out offense. As long as that shoulder comes back healthy, which it looks like it's going to do, I think Cam Newton is set out to have a little bit of a bounce back year for anyone who's willing to trade for him. Not really a free agent, but in all intents and purposes, he is because he's very available. The Panthers have made that. He's made that. The Panthers have made that all too clear, and it looks like you said, Max, teams aren't going to have to shell out a whole lot to get him, considering that the Panthers just got their franchise quarterback. So I think Cam Newton is someone that teams should be going out to get, someone that teams could very much help. And at the very least, Cam Newton can come and serve as someone who can aid in maybe a quarterback duel in camp. And he's got a lot to offer. His mind, his ability, the way he goes about his game on and off the field. I think, I've always been a very big fan of Cam Newton, and it doesn't stop now. So I'm going to go with Cam Newton as the best option still out there on the market for teams.
And yeah, for all intents and purposes, a free agent. He basically can go anywhere at this point. So a good call by you, JJ. So JJ's going with Cam. Max is going with Jadeveon. Let us know in the comments on the polls who you think had the better argument, who you think might be correct. Originally, I really was going with Max. I was super on your side, but that was a pretty compelling case by JJ. So we'll see who's going to be doing the 20 push-ups. That'll be on Wednesday, guys. We're going to give it 24 hours to collect the votes, and then we'll be doling out punishment on Wednesday. We got to move into the second half of the show now, guys, though. We're moving into quarantine questions. These are all questions basically around the coronavirus and sports, the impact on it. Because it's as much as NFL free agency, I'd love to talk about it for the whole show. There is a lot more going on in the periphery of sports right now.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and it really is unfortunate. And so with the first one here, and this is one of the most interesting subplots for me. How will the delays in all the major, baseball, and specifically basketball and hockey, I think baseball could probably survive, but how will the delays affect the future of sports and the sports calendar? Will this affect just next season or possibly further down the line? You guys are all saying no.
So
all unanimous decision right there. We've never all been on the same page as the.
Well, I'm going upstream, so I'm pretty okay with this. Let me know why you guys think it's not going to be affected, is what you guys are saying?
Oh no, it absolutely is.
Okay.
As far as I see it, only one of two things happens. As far as I see it, only one of two things happens. Either whenever these respective seasons going on this year get resumed, remaining regular season stuff needs to get either way trimmed down. Like maybe you cancel the rest of the regular season and you go right into playoffs for some leagues like NBA and NHL. I'm thinking that might be the case for soccer. Associations are talking about cutting the league short, where it is. So I think for teams that were near the end of their season, I think the only way to potentially salvage a normal schedule moving forward is to cut the rest of the regular season, immediately go into all your postseason play, and then at that point you're as close to the normal timeline as possible. Or if you do play out everything else, then at every point moving forward, you're either at some point going to have to deal with an extremely shortened off season, which makes for scheduling nightmares, or the season itself is going to have to be postponed in terms of start date, but it's going to be normally ran in terms of, the NBA is not going to have 4 games in 6 nights, and NHL players aren't going to be playing back-to-backs once a week. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So as far as I see it, only one of those two options is going to happen. You're going to either have to sacrifice at some point, because there's no way you can play out the rest of this season and then start the next seasons, like nothing ever happened.
Right. I agree. Sacrifice is going to have to come from somewhere, but I don't think it should be this season. If and when the NBA and NHL resume, I think you're going to have at least a little bit of the end of the regular season before you go to playoffs. I mean, it's the whole reason that teams have and leagues have a preseason before you start a season is when you take months and months off, you can't throw these professionals back into games that matter, especially when you're talking about playoff games. You have to allow them time to get their game conditioning back, their game legs. If you have nagging injuries, you're going to have to see how those go before you throw them right into, the most competitive part of the season, which is playoffs. And I think that's unfair to tell players, hey, not only can you not play basketball, but you can't go to team facilities. You can't see your team doctor. You can't practice with your teammates. And then to come back and say, okay, now it's playoff time, I think you've stripped that from a lot of teams. And also for in terms of the NBA, I can't speak for the NHL too much, but for the NBA, there are teams vying for that 8 seed that are a game, 2, 3 out, that you gyp them of that opportunity to make a run at the 8 seed if you come back and continue it right for the playoffs. Like, there are teams that are a game out with 20 games to go that say, like, I deserve that.
Just for the record, I don't want this to happen. I agree. I think the season should be played, and I think that is more important than making sure next season starts on the pre-scheduled start date of October, whatever, for the NBA. I agree with you. I don't think that should happen. I'm just saying, I don't know how it's either you cut the regular season for this year, or next season is, at this point, you're going to have to just push the whole season back so it's always ending at the same time. Because what are you going to do? You're going to give an NBA player 1 month off season after the last finals game, and then you're going to tell, the Lakers or whoever wins the title this year to be back in training camp in 4 weeks. You know what I mean? So something's got to give.
I think what you're looking at, I think you have to take care of the immediate. You have to take care of what's right in front of you. And we still haven't finished this season. I think you have to modify everything afterwards. And I don't think leagues are going to want to push the next season back, because you can't push the next season back and then the following season 2 years from now start on schedule, because then you're running into the exact same problem with an abbreviated offseason. So if you push next season back, now you've just changed the sports calendar indefinitely. Now every season has to be moved. I don't think they want to do that either. Leagues are placed, league times and league season lengths are placed for a reason. Like, there's a reason why the NBA plays now, the MLB plays now, the NFL plays now.
I don't know if those
you modify that. Now you're moving. I think what you're
again.
Yeah,
the following season, you might have to sacrifice the next season and cut some games.
To me, I think just like this is hitting the real world and everything outside of sports kind of universally. I think of this as a longer thing. Just like Max said, the shortened off season not only is just a scheduling nightmare, but it creates all of these, all of the mandatory pre-workouts before spring training, or not spring training. Jesus, this is where I'm at.
Preseason.
All the mandatory non-voluntary workouts before the chemistry issues for teams coming into the season, not a proper off season in terms of having lagging injuries coming into that, but also in terms of money. The leagues overall are having issues deciding whether to pay players, how much they can pay them, how much to devote to services inside their own cities, across the country, everything like that. But also teams are up for renewed media deals, TV contracts, everything like that. So having other sports that are traditionally not around in those parts of the year pushed now into you, say if football gets pushed into any of the other 4 sports, that sport now loses at least 30% of their viewership just because everybody's going to be watching football. So this has like huge implications on not just the money that the league's going to be making, but because of revenue sharing, what all of these teams are going to be seeing in their budget. Because I mean, we'll take the Tampa Bay Rays, for instance, like they depend on revenue sharing. It's just something that's really going to be interesting to kind of see. They were considering splitting time between Montreal and Tampa Bay. Like if a more asinine scenario in sports has ever occurred, let me know, because I don't think
Jaguars moving to London, maybe.
That's a this thing really is just going to be really interesting to watch how the finances of not only the leagues but the teams are impacted by this whole coronavirus.
And you brought up a good point, James. I mean, you talk about teams that want to, it doesn't just go down to players. I mean, it goes down to organizational. Teams fire GMs in the offseason, fire coaches in the offseason, move training staffs, move assistant coaches. And if you're only giving some teams, an abbreviated, 4 to 8 weeks to bring new personnel in and to adequately run your organization, I think is fooling yourself if you think that's actually going to happen. I mean, that offseason is used for so much more than just the players. And if you don't allow teams to do that, you're only, gypping teams of that opportunity, which then only hurts the bigger overall product of the whole NBA, the whole NFL. You're hurting your on-field product. So I think you have the duty to be as thorough as possible to make sure everyone has adequate time in the offseason to recoup, reorganize, and then so they can hit the ground running in the following season.
Right. And I mean, what kind of product are you expecting to get when you're robbing people of the 2 months that they take to actually spend time with their family and get their affairs in order? You know what I mean? Yeah. You're asking these people to leave and then be back in the building pretty much before you could ever forget what this guy's face looked like. You know what I mean? So we tend to forget that some of these guys are only 20, like from 20 to 25 years old. Yeah, I don't know what I would do if I'm working literally not able to pay attention to my family, go see my family. And then the time that I have allotted and planned on going to do is taking trips, going to see family across the country. I can't imagine that was taken away and I'm just expected to go back and perform the same way.
Right. And I think what everyone has to prepare themselves for is, a decision being made that majority of people aren't happy with. I mean, I think this is something where when a decision gets passed down, when a move does get made by all these leagues, that it's not going to be a pretty one. It's not going to be one that everyone's like, oh, well, they did everything exactly correct. I don't know if there's a quote unquote right answer or right way to go about doing something like this. It's just something that you have to make a decision and move on. And then hopefully a year or two down the line, we look back at this and we go, man, I'm glad that was over. I'm glad we got through it. But for whatever decision gets passed down, we just have to everyone needs to prepare themselves for it's not going to be a win-win situation for every single party involved. I just think that's unrealistic to expect. If it happens, cool, but I don't think we can bank on that.
Yeah.
And I think this is way beyond our reach or scope or whatever else. The scheduling of events inside of stadiums and how that will affect where this goes. Like I was listening to a pod today. It's the Democratic National Convention is supposed to be in Milwaukee, around the time that the playoffs should be starting. It's going to be in the Bucs Stadium. What does that mean for basketball? And I don't know if it's the worst thing in the world if the schedule starts. Like if say they fit, like the finals finish in October or something, or September. And then
I honestly don't know if that's the worst thing, man. Like push all of this huge money from concerts and national conventions to smaller venues and spread the wealth around for businesses that need to recover from shit like this. Like that might actually be better in the long run to me.
Yeah, what if we held a rally at the Fillmore? Come on, I'm ready for it.
I'm in. That's walking distance, bro. I'm out here.
That's not a bad idea at all. I just think that if it does end late, say it ends in October or it ends in September, they give everybody the rest of the year off and then they come back in January or February and now you can completely avoid the NFL season. I don't think that's a bad play for hockey or basketball. I actually think that could lead to a more profitable time. And the summer is not a great time to be on, going deeper into it, I understand, but you will be all alone. Like you're going to be all alone. And I think that's an interesting place to be. I don't think that the NBA and the NHL are as bad of a position.
I mean, besides baseball. Possibly
being delayed as baseball. Yeah, I would say that. We got to move on, though, guys. Some other things that are happening around sports, in and around the coronavirus. The NBA commissioner, Adam Silver, he's concerned for players showing up not in shape for whenever basketball is resuming. It's a little bit of this conversation about do they need some regular season games? In my opinion, as a Memphis Grizzlies fan with a 3-game lead, no, we don't need any more regular season. Let's just go straight to the playoffs. Had your time. Everyone had a chance. It was fair shake. Top 8 seeds from both conferences. Let's go. But does the time off present a legitimate problem for specifically the Sixers, who seem to be in the league with legitimate, physical concerns, and just the league in general? What do you guys think?
Here's what I'm seeing around the league. I'm seeing a lot of players and a lot of teams posting on social media how they're getting their in-home workouts done. How they're keeping their shooting regimens alive, how they're keeping their diets up. I'm seeing a lot of teams do that. You know what I'm seeing from the Sixers stars? I'm seeing Ben Simmons winning 6-on-6 COD tournaments against 15-year-olds, and God knows where Joel Embiid is right now. I haven't seen him surface not one time during this whole thing.
Him and Aiden are in the tuck, bro. They're cool.
Sure. And if you want to bank on that based on what you've seen in the past, by all means, man, live in that ignorant bliss. But I think it's a legitimate concern. With the last time Joel Embiid had an extended time off where he couldn't, do physical activity, this man ballooned up. This man was drinking milkshakes and Shirley Temples and Chick-fil-A sandwiches and all that. And we saw what kind of condition he came back last time. So I think Adam Silver is right to point that out, maybe plant a seed in minds of players to say, hey, I think it's still your duty to maintain your physical condition and make sure you're ready to go when work resumes, as all of us are being told. And, it's a good point to be made that if I can see random Joe Schmo on Instagram make an in-home workout video and keep up his gym routine, then I think I should expect for, professional athletes to be able to do the same thing in their multi-million-dollar mansions.
Yeah.
Shout out BayFit Live.
Yeah.
Max,
BayFit Live. Shout out BayFit Live.
I mean, honestly, like not really too much else to add on to that. Like the Sixers do have this history. I'll say this: the only positive spin zone I can get on this is that this gives them time to fully heal from all these injuries that have been nagging them, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, them coming back in shape. I mean, particularly Embiid, him coming back in shape is definitely a concern.
Can we investigate that point a little bit? Because I think one of the more interesting subplots that have developed in the last 10 or so days is if this starts in July or whatever, KD and Kyrie could both be back for Brooklyn. I think especially in a situation, and I think it's dismissive as well. It's a topic you can dismiss, but in those situations, they need a ramp up. Like they need some sort of regular season. If you really want to say, KD come back and, just start playing the most intense version of basketball, because it feels like that's how we got here in the first place, where it was like he has this what looks like an Achilles tear against Houston. We all think it's that. He comes back basically 2-3 weeks later, and then he actually tears his Achilles. It feels very similar to me, and it feels kind of asinine, honestly. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Max. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: if for whatever reason they do decide to do away with the rest of the regular season, like, I mean, that's got to be I don't want to call it strategy element, but that's the long-term planning. Like, do we risk these guys who technically are healthy but haven't had the chance to to spin the tires and get back in the swing of things? Like, how do you balance that out? How worth winning? How much is potentially winning something this year worth compared to the long-term future, right? For someone like the Nets.
Max, it's interesting you make this claim, because I seem to remember a couple weeks ago when we tossed around the idea of Ben Simmons sitting out, you had a completely different take with your player.
You did.
Yeah, but that's different because the season wasn't going to be suspended for 4 months.
This is full circle.
Dude, there's no way that's similar. There's no way.
Hold on.
KD tore his Achilles.
How's that not? Were you not talking about just mere 2 weeks ago shutting Ben Simmons down for the rest of the season? Were you not?
If he's healthy, he should play. I'm not sure what's getting lost in translation here. If Simmons is healthy, he should play. It's different because he's not coming off a season-ending injury. Like
coming off a back injury.
But
that's not Achilles tear. That's not guaranteed. You're out for 9 months. It can be whatever. Back injury
worse than Achilles.
Dude, I'm not doing this. It's completely different. I guarantee you, if the playoffs start on a whim, I guarantee you Kyrie Irving plays because he has played this season and he has mileage under him this season. I don't think KD plays regardless. That's the point I'm making.
That I do agree with. I think my personal opinion is that if the NBA does decide to pick up right at playoffs, that it's not worth the Nets trying to get something out of this season with KD and possibly sacrificing the next year.
I'll say this: if Ben Simmons is not still 100,000,000% healthy by the time this hypothetical season restart game 1 of the playoffs, if he's still not ready if he's not ready to get punched in the face in that game, then he shouldn't be seeing the floor because he won't have played a game in over 3 months at that point.
Australia, dude. He's ready to get punched in the face all times.
All right, good. You know what I'm saying.
All right. We got one more topic here for today, guys, and this is really just like us touching like face with humanity with all the fans out there. Thank you guys all for checking us out tonight. Yeah, we appreciate all you out there. We hope that we could do a little bit to provide an escape, be a part of this void that we all are having with sports. What sport are you guys missing the most? I miss National Basketball. I miss the National Basketball Association. Like I miss a family member. Like it really is like it's a complete just void of my life right now. I have no idea what to do with my hands. Like I just really.
I mean, at first it was 100% college basketball. I was missing the NCAA tournament, and then I was like, no, but I'm missing the end push to the NBA regular season, especially watching my Oklahoma City Thunder and watching them try to vow for a home playoff game. But then I was like, man, I was really hyped to see MLB opening weekend and watch, the Phillies and this new revamped Phillies team really hit the ground running. So it really has come to, I don't have a favorite child. I miss them all. Like, I miss sports. I miss being able to come home from a long work day and have the option of watching college basketball, the NBA, and now would have been the start of the MLB season. I miss having those sports options. I miss them all. I really, to be honest, can't really choose one at this point because I don't have any of them. I would take any of them back in a heartbeat right now.
Wow. Very bold of you to choose all of them, JJ. I gotta say. I mean, it's gotta be the tournament. It's gotta be the tournament. It's the second biggest sporting event of the year. This is like the first time in maybe my whole life. I might have paid more attention to college basketball this year than I ever have in my life. And the fact that all that's for nothing now that the tournament is canceled, that's kind of, it's like, all right, well, that's like
why you're mad, Max.
Cherry on top of the insult dessert.
That's why you're mad, Max, because you did all this research and now it's for nothing.
No, I actually watched games. I didn't really I guess research comes along with that, but I was actually like watching games. And I haven't actively watched any kind of college basketball games in at least like 6-7 years. And even back then I didn't really care so much about it. It was just what was on.
Yeah.
What you said event. So you're saying NFL playoffs over it? I just want to clear that up.
That's the Super Bowl.
Okay, just the Super Bowl. Okay, that's what I figured. It's just like
I guess technically the NFL playoffs as a whole because that's part of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But the tournament is the biggest multi. You know what I mean? Like the first round of any playoffs is not nearly as hype as the first round of the tournament. But the tournament is like the opposite of all professional sports because it gets less exciting the more it goes on in a way. You know what I mean? All the excitement is those first 2 weekends when you have just 2 days straight, Friday, Saturday, those first 2 weekends of the tournament where there's just nonstop games on multiple channels.
20 games on a day. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just different. The NFL playoffs is different. It gets better as it goes where really the tournament peaks. Really probably the tournament peaks after the first round. It goes first round, second round, and then progressively, I would say, in terms of sheer excitement.
Down here, I would think it spikes back up when you get to the Final Four.
I'll give that an 8, man. I agree with Max. I'm right there with him. I think the national championship is generally boring. Like I think.
Yeah, the Final Four, which has the Cinderella team, and usually you have like one Final Four game that's like going to be generally regarded as the best game in the tournament. Like this should have been the final instead of this this final matchup that finished 63-57. You know what I mean? So. That's just my personal opinion. I was pumped for the tournament. And I think that's what I'm missing.
Reverend Hyden, tell us about baseball.
You can all guess where I'm going. Does anybody know what today would have been?
Opening day?
No, today would not have been opening day. Today would have marked the last spring training game for the Phillies.
I was gonna guess that.
Our next baseball would have been in 4 days, and I don't think any statement has made me more depressed in the past 5 years. I think my last year at college when all I had to do was class and then just blow off on with the rest of my priorities, I think I missed a collective 4 games of baseball that entire season. And nothing, I've never been happier in my life. Like from birth till I peaked senior year of college, not because I was a senior in college, but because I watched so much baseball. That just tells you who I am.
One day you'll get that high again.
I'm feeling for you.
I was supposed to go down to Clearwater for spring training too. Like I hate life. I do. I hate it.
Oh man. Well, I mean, my birthday was March 12th, aka the day the world ended. So
yes,
that was terrible.
No.
It wasn't a good birthday, man. I'm blessed to see another year, but I mean, as soon as I saw a happy birthday wish, the next sentence was, "And I'm sorry this is happening to you." Like so,
dude, it's like March 12th is now like
it's a day in infamy. It's really a day in infamy, and I have to
fire. There's gonna be so many documentaries made about this. And
like
stand off to the side like this, but it's my birthday, guys. And
dude, I can just see the ESPN 30 for 30, like the empty Oracle Center. Like, what if I told you like the game would go on, but nobody would like? I can just, you know what I mean?
Oh.
The big game didn't go on. Well, we got to move on to tap outs tonight, guys. We got to wrap this guy up. Who wants to lead us off here? Anybody?
I'll lead us off. I see a lot of people out there saying what they miss during quarantine. I miss being able to go hang out with my friends. I miss being able to go on vacation. I miss being able, to go to work. You know what I miss? I miss my barber. I don't know
Thank
if you guys
you.
see
Bro, I was gonna say the same thing.
what is
Yeah.
going
Look at
on up
this.
here. There's a
Just
reason
all
I have
the
a hat
balls,
on. I'm gonna put it on because I don't want to offend any children watching the show. It's getting wild up there, and it's to the point where I wouldn't even ask for a full haircut. If anyone out there is nice with the clippers, like, just line me up,
Line
man.
me up.
Just get me right. Just make me presentable to go out in public, because this right now is not cutting it. And I was talking to my barber, and I thought I was going to be able to get a cut last Thursday, and he was like, "No, we got to shut down. We got to take precaution." And I was willing to risk it all. I was willing to risk it all for a cut so I could survive for the next 2 weeks. And now I'm looking to like mid-April before I can get a cut, and it's a travesty is the only way I can put it. So I know a lot of people out there feel me. Just hang in there. We're all gonna be nappy together. Hang in there, y'all. We just gotta weather the storm. That's all I can say. It's my top up.
I'm not even joking. That was what my tap out was.
Oh, that was also mine. So I have to.
Right.
So Max, you go first, so I can think of one.
It hurts. Chime in, please.
I mean,
Yeah,
because mine wasn't about hair. So, like, I know,
yeah, please.
I'm cool.
Or you don't have the struggle we have, Sean.
All right,
So
I got one. I know a lot of people might have this problem, but since we are washing our hands so much, don't forget to moisturize, because my knuckles have actually cracked open. So, you know what I mean? You're washing your hands 30 times a day, which you should. Keep washing your hands. Keep doing that. Don't forget to moisturize, because it's tough to get that skin on your knuckles back when it's open and
Things
bleeding.
dry out here. Sports is not the only thing that's dry out here.
No. And seriously though, if you're nice with the Clippers, you just
Yeah, hit us in the comments,
I'm gonna
please.
stop over here because I
Yeah, hit us in the
all that
comments.
Max, what do you got?
I got nothing. I really don't. I wish I could see my barber.
Rob. dude.
I wish I could see my barber.
That's really it. I mean, I haven't been doing much. I've been working from home. I've been not leaving my house. I've been following all the quarantine rules as well as I can. I really haven't been doing too much lately. Still chugging along with TV. Life's boring right now, man. I got nothing to talk about.
Yeah, for my tap out tonight, I think one of the biggest things that, in terms of recommendations, there's been a lot of people, TV they're watching, movies they watch, books they read, whatever else. I think one of the biggest things I've heard is what should I watch between The Wire or The Sopranos? I feel like most people haven't seen both. So, like, as someone who has seen both, let me enlighten you. I don't think The Sopranos is a good show to watch right now. Max, I'm sure that you're still in the middle of it. The Sopranos gives you a level of tension and anger inside yourself that could be nice, but you don't need it right now. You don't need to be sitting in your home 6 episodes deep in, like, season 3 when it's just like a murder train, just one after another of just, like, brutal episodes. Watch The Wire. The Wire is not a picnic, but it's engaging.
It's not The Sopranos.
It's not The Sopranos. You're not going to feel like Tony after it. And that's the biggest thing that Tony is not a guy you want to feel like ever in your life. So watch The Wire. Have a great time. You can get to The Sopranos when there's a little bit more joy in your life, there's a little bit more perspective, and there's more than 4 walls surrounding you. So that's my recommendation to you all. Watch The Wire. Anything else, gentlemen? I think that's it for our first quarantine edition of Trust Process Live.
I think we did it well. Knuckle touch. There you go.
Amen. Well, thank you all for checking us out. We're going to be here every Monday until we run out of stuff to talk about, and then we're going to make stuff up. So you keep coming back. We're going to be here helping you guys get through it. Trust the Process Live every Monday. We're going to go around 8-ish. We're recording these now, so you got to put in some time, but they will be up on Mondays. Thank you all for checking us out. Only on My New Philly, where something's always new and everything's always
Philly.
Philly.
I hope you guys enjoyed the deluxe episode. We gave you a long one.